Please join me in welcoming Renato and Chris to the stage. And then we'll also have the trustees, Dr. Hood, Don Jones, Atul Patel, and Jeffrey Willman.
We serve low-income students from the 7th grade all the way to 2 years post-college, so the 12-year promise that we stay with them. We base our work in 4 pillars: academic achievement, health and wellness, leadership through sports, in our case, the amazing sport of squash, and the last pillar is social responsibility. We have 100% graduation rates to college, over $5 million in scholarships, those students that are in college or post-college, and a fun fact, 13 national titles in squash. We are building our new facility in Southeast San Diego. Currently, we serve 107 students, and with the new facility, we'll be serving over 1,000 students. Alliance, they were the first one to believe that we could do this when this was a crazy idea.
Thank you. And I'll now turn the floor over to Chris.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chris Megison. I'm the co-founder at Solutions for Change. We've been around for about 19 years. So our mission is to solve family homelessness, one family, one community at a time. So I'd like to say that we're in the business of transformation. We equip families with the skills, knowledge, and resources they need to go from being stuck in homelessness, dependent on the public good, and we transform them over 1,000 days. Then we unleash them back into the community as healthy, employed, and productive, involved citizens in our community. So transformation requires that we go deep, but yet we know, many of us here know, that we're operating in a society that is operationalized around surface transactions, has almost kind of created the unintended consequences of what we see at Solutions for Change is kind of systematized codependency. So in order for us to operate in that environment, we have to be disruptive, and as Nick said, we put ourselves in a position where we get mocked. So when I came up with this idea of Solutions Farms, trailblazing the region's largest aquaponic farming operation, people were like, you're going to do what, and what's up with the fish, and how does this thing work? And so Solutions Farms does just that. So we are now the largest aquaponic farming operation in the Western United States. Our residents are going through our Solutions University program, get up, suit up, and show up. They go work the state-of-the-art futuristic farm. We grow organic certified food. And the kids who were eating junk food and all that before coming to Solutions are now eating the best food they could eat. And we're selling the food into the school districts up in North County, and thousands of kids are eating certified organic food in our schools. So what's our theory? We thought, wow, what if a bunch of kids who don't have access to this great organic food, what if they're eating this food? So we're combating childhood obesity, and we're just giving people much better nutrition. But the thing that gets me really excited is that we're involving the homeless in purpose-driven innovation that serves for the sake of others. And somehow we've got this idea that these folks just can't serve for the sake of others, but we're actually doing that, and we're flipping a switch in their heads that inspires them to go from users of the public good to being involved and contributing in the public good. And that's the big switch that we think that this farm helps us do. As a social entrepreneur, we're creating a mission-driven impact.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to kick off our panel by asking a couple of our trustees to speak to each of these projects, and then also bounce some questions to our fearless leaders here from the 2 organizations. So starting with Dr. Hood, perhaps you could share with us the board's rationale for making this investment in Access Youth Academy and their crazy idea of urban squash in the hood.
Urban squash. First of all, hello everybody. First of all, I usually like to start with the mission of the Alliance Healthcare Foundation, talking about equitable health resources to universal health and well-being. And if we really think about that, that's a multi-billion-dollar mission. And the funding that the foundation has is only millions. So how do you leverage that in a way? And one is innovation. And to me, by definition, all innovation is disruptive, or it's not really innovation. And I think with the youth, when it came before the board, what we saw was investment in youth, getting a high-quality education, coming back to their communities, helping their families, and actually helping their communities. So from my perspective as a board member, that was the innovation. I think the other is the partnerships that were required. And I know there were some challenges along the way.
Thank you. And Renato, maybe you could speak to that. If you could touch on the ripple effect, sort of the theory of change there, and also speak to how you have overcome some of the inevitable hurdles. I think you guys, like many in this room who are contemplating an application, you probably think you're going to go from A to B, and you're definitely not going to go exactly the way you planned. So would you speak to that? Oh.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about quickly why squash. Well, squash is a vegetable and a sport. It is a great pathway to get to scholarships. The Ivy League. I used to work for Harvard as a squash coach once upon a time, and it is the fastest sport to get to those schools. In terms of challenges, we went to City Heights and had a couple of ideas that did not come through. First location didn't work. Second didn't work. We hit the big bump, and then the board was resilient. The staff was resilient. The support was there, and we finally found a place now in Euclid Avenue, close to the Jacobs Center. So one thing I believe is important, that if you really believe that your idea is worthy, stay with it. We've been trying for 5 years now to make this happen.
I'd like to now move to our Solutions Farm recipient. And so, Don, I was hoping you might say a few words about the rationale of making this investment.
Sure. In the venture world, and I sit on a number of venture boards, you look for a number of characteristics when you make an investment. And you also know up front that the thing you're investing in won't turn out based on the plan you're reviewing. In other words, the plan will change. You also know that most of the good investments have buried in them a Trojan horse. In the case of your Trojan horse, it's squash. Squash is the thing that gets people excited and they focus on it, but that's not the goal, that's not the mission of the organization. The mission of the organization is completely different. In your case, the Trojan horse was a farm. Not the mission. You didn't go into this to build farms. You went into this to solve a different problem. But it's interesting that there's often this Trojan horse that actually ends up supplying an interesting element because it distracts most of the people that don't dig deeply. They just think about the squash or the farm. We obviously are thinking about the whole program. And in thinking about the whole program, and I actually think in this case why this one got funded, was we invested in management. Management came forward with an idea. The idea was interesting. We all knew the idea wouldn't turn out exactly the way they presented it. But Chris presented a leadership team that basically we bet on because it had the energy level and perseverance that would figure out how to make it work. And I would say that's something we don't always see very often, but when investors are making investments into something that's going to make change, you absolutely positively have to have the management team to lead it. And in this case, we had it.
Thank you. Atul?
Hi, good morning, everyone. For me, I must admit, I was skeptical about the proposal. But having seen and learned more about how innovative this idea is, and specifically, really, truly a startup, I believe that what you're planning to do or what you intend to do, the goal of transformation for homeless families, is a worthwhile goal. And our investment is a startup investment. We know that you have lots of challenges, but I'm now convinced that if we stick with it, we'll find scalability, sustainability, which is what I find attractive about the proposal. I think it can be sustainable, and hopefully will serve a lot more families.
I think Dr. Hood would like to add.
Yeah, I didn't mention about the Solutions Farm, but I think what really impressed me was the business model. You got contracts with schools, and I think that people are learning about farming. And so the thing that I liked best about it was not only was it a good idea, but you came up with a business model to hopefully sustain it.
Jeffrey, would you like to say a few words about the rationale and also your observation as to where you think the opportunity is here?
Absolutely, thank you, and good morning, everyone. You might think farming or squash is way outside the healthcare spectrum and improving the health of the community, and particularly those I call on the fringe. But it really it starts with a couple of core principles, and that is family health. We actually had a heavy debate on the impact that children's behavior change and improvement would have on the family, and actually felt that might have a stronger influence in the entire family's development and growth over a period of time, more so than trying to impact the behavior of parents, which is often where the focus is as the responsible parties in a family. And so family health is a huge part of our community's health. The other message you'll hear consistently throughout the day, I believe, is that philanthropic or a nonprofit organization is just like an entrepreneur. So I'd just like to say I think our collective interest is to help find those ideas and foster them. Some of that is just funding, but a bigger part of the funding, or then funding for us, is finding partnerships and supporting the idea to make sure that those ideas come to fruition and have the impact in the community that you want to see.
When we think about these investments, particularly the farm and also Access Youth Academy, I know a lot of folks have said, well, gosh, do just fund technology innovation. And these are really poignant examples of not funding purely technology innovation. We're also, though, thinking about how these organizations, again, transform the status quo. We're not just interested in making investments in organizations that are perpetrating the status quo, but they're actually, hopefully, if our thesis and the value prop really proves out, hopefully we get a lot of kids that went to school, really great schools, and all their siblings and the community and all those people see that, and now that changes their paradigm, and we've fostered hope, which maybe to get to the Ignite, if we change the belief structure, do we change what's possible in those communities? That's another sort of element of the theory of change that we were trying to develop. And then, as I think about Solutions Farm, we recognize that the very best thing that you guys could aspire to is to not need foundation money, really. I know that's sort of a different message, but we look at this investment as a way to lift you and hopefully get you sustainable. And both of these projects had that element in them. And so that made them, again, access quality, better quality, and hacking the cost. And with that, I will thank our first panel.